What are some of the abiotic tomato issues that we're generally seeing, especially with the wet gear? So what I'd like to do first is just do a reminder of what is abiotic so everyone can be on the same page. So essentially it's something that's not living. It's going to be anything with soils, nutrient deficiencies, temperature extremes, storm damage, animal damage, nutrient toxicity, chemical injury, mechanical injury, girdling. So these are all things that are not going to be a disease of any kind or any kind of insect damage. So just so that we're all on the same page and we understand what abiotic means. So let's look at some of these different types of issues, or actually disorders that are occurring that are abiotic that we're probably seeing in our tomatoes as of right now. So we can have a lot of poor or no fruit set, and there's multiple reasons as to what that could be. We could have nighttime temperatures that are going to be above 70 degrees or below 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And so this past couple of weeks, we've been pretty close to that 55, or at least where I am. I know we got down to about 58 one evening. Daytime temperatures that are above 90 degrees combined with low humidity, and or if there's a drought, or if there are hot drying winds that are also occurring with those temperatures. Dry soil can cause blossoms to dry up and actually to fall off. So during the drought season past 2 years, we probably saw some of that. Too much nitrogen fertilizer, what that does is it makes the leaves grow and we'll have less of our fruit set. Cold temperatures when you actually plant in the spring can actually keep the plants delayed a little bit from actually growing, which then delays the time that it takes in order for those plants to bloom. Insufficient sunlight, so we need at least a minimum of 6 hours of direct sunlight on our vegetable gardens. And lack of good air circulation or lack of pollinators. Those are multiple reasons as to why there is either poor or no fruit set. Failure to ripen, and this is actually from my house. I've got a lot of tomatoes. They just seem to be sitting there. They're not turning red, although this morning when I watered, I did see a red one and I got really excited. So temperatures that are below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, or if they're above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So as I said, temperatures where I am, a couple of nights it got down below 60 degrees. And so that's probably one of the reasons why mine are not ripening. Compacted soil or overly wet soils can inhibit the root growth, and that has an effect on the ripening. Low potassium, because potassium is important for our plants to actually grow fruit and to produce seed as well. So those are some of those issues as far as the failure to ripen. Yellow shoulder is also another issue that can occur. They can be yellow along the tops here, as you can well see. They could also remain green, which is a potential. And then when you cut them open underneath that yellow or that green, they're going to remain and have some white or some green tissue or growth underneath of that regular tomato growth. They're not 100% sure what is associated with this as far as what specific adverse weather, but it does occur. There are some varieties that are more prone to having yellow shoulder disorder than other varieties that are out there. So take note if you've got a specific variety and it's got yellow shoulder showing up, you may not want to grow that in your garden, perhaps in the future. Then blotchy or uneven ripening, we also call this gray wall, and you can see the different coloration right here. It's not ripening totally red across the fruit itself. Then it's also an indication of inadequate potassium. So again, potassium is important for fruit and seed growth. You can have compacted soil. Could also be too much nitrogen. Could also be high temperature with a high relative humidity. You could also have a lot of foliage that's growing on the plant. And so there's so much of a canopy that internally, if there's tomatoes that are growing, they may not get enough of the sun. So they could be a little blotchy as well. Blossom end rot, and we see this one all the time. We always see remedies that are out going across the internet about blossom end rot and how to prevent that. What blossom end rot is, as you can actually see, is the end of the blossom part of the fruit development is where it actually will turn a darker color. It can be a deep brown, and it can also be sunken. So some varieties are more prone to this than others. For example, the Roma type tomato varieties do have a tendency to have blossom end rot more so than the other types of tomatoes that are out there. It is due from a lack of an uptake of calcium by the plant due to inconsistent watering. It's not because we don't have enough calcium in the soils. Missouri soils have plenty of calcium. It's just that there's inconsistent watering. And so therefore the roots are unable to uptake the calcium that's already existing in the soil. Catfacing, and I kind of like the name of this one because there's lots of interesting designs that our tomatoes show when we have catfacing. It is a deformity that actually occurs when the flower is actually growing. So during the formation of the flower itself is when catfacing actually starts to occur. It too is located at the blossom end part of the fruit. It is caused by cold temperatures during flowering. It can also be high nitrogen fertilization and improper pruning. So again, another reason why everybody wants to get those tomatoes in the ground right away. I know I do. I want those fresh tomatoes. But by waiting just a little bit longer, you could also be avoiding some of the issues that cause catfacing of your tomatoes. There are some varieties that are very large fruited, and some of those have a tendency to have catfacing more so than some of the other types of varieties. Zippering, and this is an interesting term. I like that it's called zippering. This also occurs during the formation of the flower. What actually happens is the anther on the flower itself actually sticks to, because that end there is a little sticky, a little tacky, and it will actually attach or stick to the developing fruit itself, and then it stays attached and it becomes a scar and it continues to grow. Sometimes it can go all the way from the top of the fruit all the way to the opposite end of the fruit, going up and down in those fashions. There can also be an open hole on the zippering part of it, so you can see those issues are occurring right there, and those actually can split open. So you want to pay attention to if your tomatoes actually have some zippering, and if you start to see it before it gets too bad, go ahead and harvest that fruit off of the plant. The only control is to select varieties that are less prone to the occurrence of zippering. Cracking, and I have this on my one tomato that I do see, and I've gone ahead and I've taken it off of the plant before it actually started turning red. They can be radical growths. They can be concentric growths. So they can grow in that circle or they can grow up and down essentially along that fruit line. And what that means is that the plant, the fruit itself is actually uptaking more water into the fruit before the actual skin around that fruit is actually able to grow and expand with that additional water that's inside. And so it kind of bursts itself open a little bit, and that's what cracking is. And so that can be over-fertilization, that it just grows too fast. It could be extreme fluctuations in temperature and soil moisture. Could also be prone to not having enough foliage on the plant to protect it from the sun. And some varieties are just more prone to cracking than others. But the main one is that it actually bursts open because inside grows faster than the skin itself. Sunscald is another one that we have a tendency to see. Usually this is going to occur more often when the temperature gets really warm, the plant is set fruit, they're starting to develop and turn red. However, there's a lot of sun out there. It does start when the tomato is actually still a little green, so you can see that in that below picture. The more sun that it can get, the more that damage that tomato can actually have. I know during the drought when we had really high temperatures in the 90s and the low hundreds, some folks were putting up umbrellas or putting a type of a sheet or a cloth that would still cover the plant, not touch the plant to protect it just so that it would not get Sunscald. White core is also another one that we can see, and this usually occurs when there's a lot of stress on the tomato, and it's going to be tough on the inside. It's going to be a little whitish on the inside, and it can be a hard tomato to try to still continue to eat. We also call it corkiness of the tomato fruit itself. Low potassium could be one of the reasons for this, as well as just going through and looking and deciding and choosing on some of the newer varieties that are less prone to this disorder.